we are going to move on to tonight's lesson and our verse. And we've got about 15 minutes left to do those things. So I told you guys last week that I wanted us to start answering some questions together. And a question that I got this week that we're going to answer is, what does the Bible say about worry? About worrying. So first question I have for you guys, what does it mean to worry? Raise your hand and I can unmute you. What does it mean to worry? Kelsey, I saw your hand. Kelsey, what does it mean to worry?
Like you get scared-ish kind of, but you're not too scared. You're worrying that something's going to happen.
Yeah, scared-ish. Who else has one? You know what? I'm just going to unmute you all. Just raise your hand and I'll call on you. Brianna, what do you think worry means?
That you get like nervous and that you might get like you might get mad maybe.
Yeah, nervous and mad. Jack, what do you think?
That like you're scared but not entirely scared, like you're more scared for somebody else's sake.
Okay, sure. Anybody else want to answer that question? I'll move on to my next question. So my next question, we just answered what is worry. Does anybody have a time, an example of a time that they have been worried? So I can answer that, and then I'll ask you guys too. So a time when I was worried was when my son was born. Daniel, he started turning yellow, and I got worried. And he's okay, but his skin started turning yellow, and they had to put him in a blue blanket. Like it kind of radiated blue light, and it made him all better. But yeah, when his skin was turning yellow, I got a little worried. I was kind of worried for him because I wanted him to be healthy. Does anybody else have a time when they were worried? Brianna?
I was on a boat with my dad, and we were riding, and so I told him to go in a circle around the water so you get waves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't holding on, and I went up and I almost fell off.
Oh no!
That just happened like a week ago too.
Oh, I'm glad you're okay.
I was going to fall off, but I didn't. But it was still fun. But then I got worried when I almost fell over, and then I let go of everything. That was
totally. Elsie, did I see you raise your hand?
Yeah, when I got my glasses.
Yeah, what were you worried about?
Just having them, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was too. Kelsey, what about you?
So when I wake up in the middle of the night and then I think about something really scary and then I can't fall asleep and I get really scared that it's actually gonna.
Like sometimes, have you ever heard like in the middle of the night, like a creak or some sort of noise in the house? That happens. Our house, which I love our house, but the floors upstairs are really like squeaky. And so sometimes in the night, I'll convince myself that I heard something, and then I get a little worried.
Yeah,
obviously, everything's okay though. Jack, what about you?
When we were out in New Jersey on vacation last year, we went to the beach, and I went out a little ways, and then the water was coming back, and I kind of got like the sand underneath my feet started getting back, and I got pulled back into like a little trench almost, and then a wave came. I could still stand up, but a wave came over me and kind of knocked me down, and yeah, I was just in a panic.
Yeah, that is kind of scary. So when I was kind of looking at, Dan, did you want to answer quickly?
Yeah.
Your grandma here's a wave.
I was boogie boarding and Julie was boogie boarding, and I fell into the water. And as soon as I looked up, I saw something dark move over me. Then when it went back up, I got up, and they helped me up, and it turned out Julie had been had the boogie board had went right over me. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I did when I was reading in the Bible about worry is I kind of made a list of words that kind of relate to worry for me. So you guys have already said some of them. When we think of worrying, we kind of think about being nervous, or like concerned about something, maybe afraid. A couple other words were like when we're unsure about something, sometimes we worry, right? Or when we're doubting something. Another word that the Bible uses is the word anxious. Have you guys heard that word before? Anxious? Yeah, it kind of means worrying. Like when we're anxious about something, it means we're worried. And this was a great question. And you know what? Not only do we get to look in the Bible, but we get to hear from the world's best teacher ever. And that's Jesus. Jesus actually taught us about worry. So I want you to take out your Bible and I want you to turn to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6. And the verse that we'll be starting in is verse 25. Matthew 6, verse 25. So when Jesus when Jesus said these words, he was teaching to a big crowd. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus was teaching everybody, and he talked to them about worrying. And right before that, he talked to them about what's most important in life, and that is putting God first. And then he says, if we're putting God first, this is what he says about worrying, okay? So you guys can read along with me, starting in verse 25. I tell you, do not worry. Don't worry about your life and what you will eat or drink. And don't worry about your body or what you'll wear. Isn't there more to life than eating? Aren't there more important things for the body than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't plant or gather crops. They don't put away crops in storerooms, but your Father who's in heaven feeds them. Aren't you worth much more than they are? Can you add even 1 hour to your life by worrying? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the wildflowers grow? They don't work or make clothing. But here's what I tell you. Not even Solomon in all his royal robes was dressed like one of these flowers. If that is how God dresses the wild grass, won't he dress you even better? Your faith is so small. After all, the grass is here only today. Tomorrow it's thrown away into the fire. So don't worry. Don't say, what will we eat? Or what will we drink? Or what will we wear? People who are ungodly run after all those things. Your Father who's in heaven knows what you need. But put God's kingdom first. Do what he wants you to do. Then all those things will be given to you. So don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So I'm going to unmute you guys and we're going to answer some questions, okay? So that's Jesus's teaching on worry. And, you know, to kind of summarize it, basically what God is saying is God takes care of birds and flowers. And he cares even more about you guys than he cares about birds and flowers. Do you guys remember why God cares even more about humans than he does about flowers and birds? We talked about it when we first started doing these online things. We talked about God creating us, and he created us special. How did he create human? Jack?
He created us in God's image, or in his image.
We're in his image. And so God cares for us in a special way. So what I want to do is I want to kind of just go through and summarize what Jesus is saying in each verse. So verse 25, this is what Jesus says. I tell you, do not worry. Don't worry about your life and what you will eat or drink. And don't worry about your body and what you'll wear. Isn't there more to life than eating? Isn't there more to life, or aren't there more important things for the body than clothes? So if you had to like summarize in a few words what Jesus says in that verse, what would you say? Jack?
There's more important things in life than like stuff that you have.
Absolutely. Elsie, what would you say?
Do not worry about your life.
Yeah, that's that's what I wrote down too. I said, do not worry about what you have. A word that we can use is provision, which is what God provides. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, verse 26. Look at the birds of the air. They don't plant or gather crops. They don't put away crops in storerooms, but your Father who's in heaven feeds them. Aren't you worth much more than they are? What do you think Jesus is saying in that verse? Dan?
Wait, you think I said one? I was just trying to get my hand in the light.
Oh, okay. All right, Elsie, what would you say?
You are worth more than the birds and the.
Yeah, in this one, he just talks about the birds, and basically he's saying, hey, you guys, if God takes care of the birds, don't you think he's going to take care of you? You know, in our yard, well, at our house, we have this light right above the door, and it's a motion light, so when you walk in front of it, it turns on the light at night, you can see, and every time it rains, the birds build a nest on it. Overnight, they build it so fast, it's crazy. And so we didn't want the birds right by our door, so I built them a birdhouse. And it's really fun to see the birds fly in there, and sometimes we get to see them fly around and pick up worms for food. And if God provides worms for those birds, don't you think he's going to provide stuff for you too? Yeah. And Jesus goes on, and then he talks about flowers. Kelsey and I made a flower box. So we have flowers at our house now, and the flowers are so pretty. And if God takes care of those flowers and he makes them that beautiful, don't you think he's going to take care of you too? That's what Jesus is saying here. So I went through this whole thing and I thought about if Jesus is telling us not to be worried, what are we supposed to do when we feel a little scared? Because it still happens, right? Even though God provides for us, sometimes we're still worried. Well, here's what I thought of. Can you guys picture for me being in a car, right? We've all ridden in cars, right? Yeah. Okay, so picture for me being in a car. Now, raise your hand to answer the question. When you picture yourself in a car, who do you picture driving the car? Elsie?
My mom or my dad or my sister.
Mom or dad, sister. Brianna, who do you think of?
Maybe my grandma and grandpa, or like my friends' parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Kelsey, what do you think? Your mom or grandma? Yeah, that's what I thought of too. When I thought of you guys in a car, usually your parents are going to be driving, right? Well, when you're in a car with your parents and they're driving, are you worried? No? Me neither. Growing up, when I was in a car and my parents were driving, I wasn't worried. So what does that mean? If you're in the car and you're not worried, what does that mean? Emily, do you have your hand up?
Driving a car.
He does have a beard, yeah.
Is Ted, my bigger
Was he
brother.
wearing a hat?
Ted. Yep. Well, here's the thing. If you're in a car and you're not worried, it means that you must trust the driver, right? Because if you were in a car and let's say like your 5-year-old brother, I know none of you have a 5-year-old brother, but pretend you had a 5-year-old brother and he was driving. Would you maybe be a little worried being in that car? Yeah, you would, because you wouldn't trust your 5-year-old brother to drive the car, right? He wouldn't know the rules. He probably wouldn't be tall enough to reach the steering wheel and the pedal, and it would be kind of scary. Well, we can actually kind of picture our life like being in a car. And right before these verses that we read, Jesus tells us that we need to put God as the most important thing in our life. And so if he's the most important thing in our life, that kind of means he's driving the car, right? Yeah, he's driving the car, he's in charge, he's choosing the turns and the directions. And if God is driving the car, do we need to be worried? No, we have no reason to be worried. And you know what? If we are worried, it's kind of like we're saying that we don't trust God. And that's never what we want to be saying. We always want to be trusting God, and we always can trust God. He is worthy of our trust. And so basically, what Jesus tells us about worrying is that if we trust God, then we have no reason to worry, because God is going to provide for us and God is going to care for us. He cares for the birds, he cares for the flowers, and he loves you and me even more than those things. So we do not need to be worried. And when we are worried, 1 Peter 5:7 says that we can cast all of our worries on God because he cares for us. Raise your hand if you can answer this question. What does it mean to cast all of your worries on God? What does that mean? Kelsey, I'm going to unmute you. Kelsey, what does it mean to cast all your worries?
Like, you take all your worries and you put it on that one person.
Yeah. Kind of like we give them to God, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Who else has an answer for that one? Brianna, unmute. All right, go ahead, Brianna.
God takes some from you so you aren't worried no more and you feel safer.
Absolutely. That is absolutely right. When we cast our worries on God, basically what we're saying is, you know what, God? I don't need to be worried about this because I know that you are in control. So I'm going to let you take care of this and I won't be worried about it. You know, one of the verses that we read tonight says, can you add even an hour to your life by worrying? And what that means is if we worry about something, is it going to help anything? No, it doesn't. Us worrying doesn't help. We don't have control over some of those things, and that's why we let God have control of them. So our memory verse is 1 Peter 5:7. So here's the actions. First, hold up a 1. 1 Peter, so you're going to make your body into a P. It's kind of hard, but you guys kind of see how I'm a P. 1 Peter 5:7. And we're going to do this. Cast all, so this is like you're casting a fishing pole. Raise your hand if you like to fish. Yeah, I got to go fishing this week. It was a lot of fun. All right, so cast all. Do a good casting motion for me. Cast all your worries. Make a worried face, like ah! Maybe you're biting your fingernails. Ah! So cast all your worries on God because he cares. Wrap yourself up in a hug. Cares for you. All right, let's do that again. 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your worries on God because he cares for you. All right, I'm going to unmute you guys. I want us to say that one together, okay? You guys ready? Here we go.
Yep.
1
First,
Peter
Peter
5:7.
7.
Cast all
All
your worries
your
on
worries
God because he cares
He cares
for you.
for you.
Good job, you guys. Good job. So that is our lesson for this week, and that is the verse. And that's what the Bible says about worrying. It says that we don't have to be worried because God cares for us. So when we're worried about something, when we feel nervous, we can give that to God. You know, just last night, I was actually worried about something. I had something that I was going to where I didn't know exactly how it was going to go, and I felt a little nervous. So before I left, I sat down with my wife, Kelsey, and I said, Kelsey, will you pray with me about this? Will you help me give this over to God? And so Kelsey and I prayed about it, and we just asked God to take care of it and to give me peace about it. And he did. I went to that thing and I felt at peace, and God took care of it, and me worrying about it wasn't going to help anything. So I trusted God with it. And that is what happens when we cast all of our worries on him. God takes care of those things for us. So I hope you guys feel encouraged by that tonight. That is what the Bible says about worrying.